I apologize. I hope we got everybody off the other channel onto this channel. Okay, before we start, as we've been doing the last bunch of years, we're learning L'Zecher Nishmas, Yehuda, Shimon, Zechron L'Rocha ben Yeshua Yosef Moshe, Mordechai Chana, Zechron L'Rocha ben Reb Chaim Yitzchak Zev, and Aryeh Leib, Zechron L'Rocha ben Yeshua Adam Zalman. Those are children of our good friends. And like we said, their neshamas don't need an aliyah. Our neshamas need an aliyah. Hence, we're trying to learn together on a Motzei Shabbos and to try and improve ourselves and et cetera, et cetera. So I hope we'll be able to accomplish that. Okay, so as is in other years, um, uh, everybody's muted because it'll be very hard to accomplish what we have to try and accomplish in around a half hour. So just please post any questions you have in the chat, and we will try and get to all the questions. Okay, so for the first, it seems like, and of course we also thank Mrs. Jacobs for arranging this. It seems like the two options to learn were muksa, even though we did that a couple of years ago, and yichud. So since I can be here this week and next week, Be'ez Hashem, the week after that I'm not around, and then one more week, and then Shabbos Chanukah. So I figure let's try to accomplish Hilchos Yichud within hopefully those 3 weeks, and then after Chanukah, Be'ez Hashem, then we will start with Muksa, unless another subject comes up that there's a consensus that everybody would like. Also, the shiurim are being recorded, and they will be available on the YouTube channel and on Kol HaLashon, and probably other forms of media. I don't know, but I'm not in charge of that. But I thank those that are in charge of that. Okay, so Hilchos Yichud. Not trying to make a teaser to get everybody to come back for the future shiurim, but we're going to discuss a lot of scenarios tonight, Be'ez Hashem, and we are not going to come up with all the answers because it is just not enough time. Hilchos Yichud is quite technical, not complicated at all, but technical, and there's going to be a lot of situations where that we're going to discuss, and you're going to say, "Oh, that's a problem, and I wasn't aware of it." And there are many ways out of Yichud, but we first have to discuss the scenarios, and and but we won't be able to get all the answers. That's what I'm saying. So I apologize in advance if we will not get all the answers to get us out of the scenarios. But first we have to first bring up the scenarios, and we'll go through some of the common situations and see what we can do about it. So there's a few things that are unique about Hilchos Yichud. First of all, it's from the most common shilas that are asked. People ask me, like, what are the most common sets of shilas that come through? So obviously, Taras HaMishpacha is number one, and Kashrus is a close second. After that, it's Ma'aser Ksafim, believe it or not. People ask a lot. Baruch Hashem, Klal Yisrael gives tzedakah, so Ma'aser Ksafim is very popular questions. And Yichud. Yichud is from the most common questions that are asked. So it just shows how important the subject it is. And technology has both made some of the Yichud shilas extinct. The old Yichud shilas, a lot of them are gone because of technology. A lot of them are gone because of lawyers and lawsuits. But technology has also made it that there are more complicated questions, because technology has it that there are sophisticated locks and ways that you can put locks and security on rooms, especially for therapists, where people are not going to come in the room, because even if the room is open, because they have technology says that there's a light on outside the room that says that there's something in session, nobody's going to walk in. If that's the case, then the yichud might be a little bit more complicated. So technology, and we'll go through it, and of course the obvious is that do video cameras and FaceTime and Zoom, do those help to take care of a yichud issue? Right? So that we will discuss also. So just for some background of Hilchos Yichud and the reason why Hilchos Yichud could be more complicated. So first of all, most poskim say that Yichud is an Issur Daraisa. There are poskim that say it's a Darabanan, but the most poskim, and it seems like that's the way we paskin, that the Issur of Yichud is an Issur Daraisa, which is very scary because we're talking about major Issur Daraisa. There are opinions that actually say that it is Yehareg Val Yavar to be alone together, a man and a woman to be alone together is Yehareg Val Yavar, just like any other arayas. Meaning, as we know that if somebody's life is threatened, unless they do an avera, we know the halacha is that you do the avera, except for avodah zarah. Meaning, if somebody says to do avodah zarah, one has to die. Meaning, somebody threatens your life, unless you do avodah zarah, so one has to die. You don't do avodah zarah. If somebody threatens somebody's life and says kill somebody, and if you don't kill them, I'm going to kill you, then that's also one has to die. And then the third one is arayas, any illicit and immoral relationships, depending on what the level is, one also has to die. That's what we call arayas. So there are opinions that say that if somebody comes over to a guy and says, "I want you to stay in this room alone with this woman," I'm a man, and I'm going to talk from the male perspective because that's just what I'm used to. I apologize for that, but whenever I say that, it means the reverse also. This meaning the halachas are no different from a man's perspective and a woman's perspective. But just I'm okay. I'm gonna try and not talk like that, but in case I do, which is probable, it means the same way. Meaning it goes from the man's perspective and the woman's perspective, from the woman's perspective. So therefore, if a guy says and threatens somebody's life and says, "Want you have to be alone with a man in the room," right? Or a man and woman should be alone in the room. There are opinions that say that you're not allowed to be alone in the room, and they would have to die. We don't paskin like that. We don't paskin like that. But it's important to know how severe these halachas are. Now, the reason, no, so but before we continue with that, the basic concept of yichud is asur min Torah. However, there are many relationships that are going to be the yichud is only going to be the rabbanon, and of course, we know that you have to keep it the rabbanon as much as you have to keep it the deraisa. However, there are lots of loopholes and leniencies in what yichud and when you don't have the problems of yichud. If we're dealing with a derabanan yichud, then we're going to have a lot more flexibility in being makel on the yichud. For example, yichud with a goy is a derabanan, right? So anytime there's a yichud with a goy, which is very common when with cleaning ladies and babysitters and co-workers, so with a goy it's a derabanan. Yichud with two women is a derabanan, right? And yichud with a single girl is also derabanan. However, that's only a single girl who has not yet matured and that she gets a monthly cycle. Once she gets a monthly cycle and she doesn't go to the mikveh, then it's a deraisa even on a single girl. Right. So that's basically why dating people when you have um um shidduch dates or any type of date, but hopefully it's just shidduch dates, and you can have even though she's single, you still could have it's regular nida midara and it's regular yichud midaraisa because the assumption is that all single girls are in nida because they haven't gone to mikvah, which is the same reason why this whole shomer negia. They say, "Are you shomer? Are you like what they call shomer? Are you shomer? Are you not shomer?" That is an issur midaraisa to touch. Um, even though they're not married, as long as they didn't go to mikveh. If they go to mikveh, which hopefully they don't do, the yichud, the touching would be a derabanan, and the yichud would also be a derabanan. That's just an important side point. Um, and yeah, so that's why it's important to know when the yichud shaila that's being dealt with is it the rabbanon or the raisa. Fine. So now again, just to repeat, you know what? I'll repeat it again at the end. I'll review it again at the end. So the first thing is that we're talking about a potential isur daraisa of yichud, and that is not something that we like to get involved with. That's one. The other thing, and this is why every time if I'll just say a little personal here that like sometimes I put my phone on to sleep, or a lot of times I put my phone on to sleep so I could actually try and accomplish something, and then sometimes I'll have it off for a half hour and then I'll check, and then there's a yichud shaila or two, and that's where a delay is a problem because according to halacha there is no minimum amount of time for yichud. Meaning, yes, you're going to say, oh, yichud by a wedding. So there's different opinions if yichud by a, meaning you have to have yichud. That's one of the forms of a husband and wife getting married. So they have yichud together where they're alone in a room, and that's part of the one of the kinyonim, the way you make the marriage. So there's different opinions. Some say 5 minutes, some say 9 minutes, some say and somewhere in between, some say even less than 5 minutes, whatever it is. That's true. That is the sheer of yichud. However, even a partial time of yichud is asa, meaning every second that you are being over on yichud is an isser, even if you haven't hit the 5 minute mark. I hope I'm being clear with this, but meaning there is no, even though we know that in order the mitzvah of yichud by a marriage has a certain amount of time, but when one is alone with the opposite gender for even a fraction of a second, that is asa. Meaning you can't say that, oh, we're gonna be alone for less than 5 minutes, and therefore it's not yichud. That does not work because first of all, I mean, there's a few reasons. You know what? I don't know if we should spend the time getting into why that is, but bottom line is it's any amount of time. So meaning if somebody texts a shiloh or calls a shiloh for a yichud shiloh, and I don't answer, and they're alone, then they're being over on isurim because it's not they don't have that wherewithal, that time frame. So meaning every second counts. That's the bottom line. Every second counts. So you can't just say, oh, okay, I got a couple minutes, let me work this out. No, it's one of these shilas that you can't let it wait. You have to find out if what you're doing right then and there is a problem, and if it is, then you must leave at any time. Now, of course, again, I'm gonna reiterate this. There are many, many leniencies, and they can be implemented very quickly and very easily, but you have to know about them. So that's so don't get scared because there's always ways out from the yichud. You just have to know whether they should be implemented, and that would be dependent on, like we said, whether we're talking about yichud daraisa or we're talking about yichud darabanan, etc., etc. Right? Okay. However, there is a scenario where the minimum amount of yichud does come into play, and that's on an elevator. Very common question is there yichud in an elevator? You're going in an elevator to work, and you're on the 10th floor, and you get into the elevator, and then the elevator stops on the next floor, and a woman walks in. What are you supposed to do now? Right? So is that yichud or is that not yichud? So there, the poskim say, since the whole situation is a matter of less than a minute or two, most elevators will get there within a very short time, which is less than the sheer yichud, which is less than the amount of time of yichud. So then that's the main reason why the elevators are going to be okay. Even if it's an elevator going to the 40th floor and it's going to take some time, in that situation, that's where the timing of yichud does come into play. Meaning, if you're alone in in an office with a woman and you have no idea how long you're gonna be there for. So then the clock starts right then and there that you're having a problem with yichud. But if you know lechatchila that the scenario that you're in is not going to last for too long, then then it won't be a problem. So that's elevator. That's the main heter for an elevator. Besides that, a lot of elevators have video cameras in them, as far as I know, and therefore that also helps. But we'll get to video cameras, Bez Hashem, next week or maybe the week after that. Okay, so again, there's one you're being when you are violating, let's call violating, I don't know if that's a good word in this situation, the Isser of Yichud, there is no minimum amount of time, it's Usr immediately. However, if you know that you're going to be in a situation where the Yichud is not going to last more than 10, 20, 30 seconds, then it's not going to be Yichud. Would you know where? Yeah, so that's the story with the background with the Yichud. David HaMelech, it happened in steps, right? David HaMelech added to the base of Yichud, like David HaMelech added the single girls, right? But the basic yichud is minat Torah. But that's also part of the conversation of exactly how the Isser of yichud went. Meaning it progressed. The Isser of yichud with goyim were added, single girls were added. Again, single girls back then went to mikvah. Right, the whole single girls does not apply like anymore nowadays, like we said. But back then, single girls, because of Tum and Tar and the Beis Hamikdash, went to mikvah. So that's why they were all added. But if we spend time going through all that, then it's gonna really take a lot of time. Now, if the elevator gets stuck in between floors, so there's a potential for that. But usually when that happens, but correct me if I'm wrong, then usually they will be on the, I think there's microphones and they could talk to you, I think, in the newer elevators. I don't know about the old elevators. And therefore that might take care of the yichud issue, but that will do, Bez Hashem, when we get to all the heterim. Now, so that's background. Now some more background is what are the minimum ages of yichud? So this may come as a surprise to people, but the minimum age of yichud with a girl is 3 years old, right? And the minimum age for a boy is 9 years old. Okay, 3 years old is an isur yichud, and for a girl, and for a boy, meaning for a woman to be. I'm sorry. Let's get it. Let's try to be clear. A man to be alone with a woman is any girl over the age of 3 is an isur of yichud. For a woman to be alone with a man, that age is 9. So a woman being alone with a man age 9 is a problem, and a man being alone with a girl over the age of 3 is a problem. This is a major issue with babysitters. It's an issue with babysitters, and it's an issue with what we call play dates, right? Meaning, if you have a 13-year-old boy, a 14 or 15-year-old boy, babysitting for his niece, right? Because they know each other, or of a cousin, right? I'm not so sure how common it is to have 15-year-old boys, 16-year-old boys doing babysitting, but usually families that are close, if you have cousins, you have siblings, et cetera, et cetera, you have a problem. And with the girl, if he's babysitting and the girl over 3, then that is a yichud issue. Not only that, but you have a father who's watching the kids, and he has a daughter that's 5 years old, and that daughter has a girl, a friend who's a friend. She has her friend over who's also 5 years old, right? You have a problem. You have a potential problem there of yichud because he's alone. He's alone with his daughter and another 5-year-old girl, or even a 3-year-old girl, and that is as bizarre as it sounds, but that is the halacha. It's very clear in the halacha, and I don't think there's anybody that disagrees that So now this father is sitting home alone, and his wife steps out for a bit, and like we said, there's no minimum amount of time, and then and now he has a yichud issue because his daughter has a friend over, right? Or you have a more common is a girl, teenage girl, babysitting a 9-year-old boy. You have a problem, right? Because the 9-year-old boy has a has there's an Isser Yichud. Now, it would depend on how many other kids are in the house, etc., etc. And it would depend how where the wife went, if the wife is in town, if the husband is in town. It depends if the door is open. It depends on there's all sorts of leniencies, but again, we're just trying to set the baseline for the halachas that have to be known. Same thing if a kid stays home from school, a boy stays home from school, and there's a cleaning lady in the house, right? And that boy is over the age of 9. If the boy is under the age of 9, then it's not a problem. If the boy is over the age of 9 and it's his 9-year-old alone with a babysitter slash cleaning lady or cleaning lady, whoever it is, then you have a problem. Same thing in a doctor's office. You have a male doctor who is seeing a girl over the age of 3. Now, usually there's a parent or a guardian there, but sometimes you could have, a 10-year-old boy, and he goes into the doctor by himself, and you might have a yichud issue. Again, we'll get into whether the doors are unlocked and whether nurses can come in, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Now, what's interesting is that a boy 9 and a girl over 3, that's not yichud. The consensus of most poskim is that is not yichud. Meaning, even though an adult with a girl over 3 is yichud, and I mean a male adult over 3 with a girl, I'm sorry, a male adult with a girl over the age of 3 is yichud, and a female adult with a boy over 9 is yichud, but a boy 9 years old with a girl over 3, that's not yichud. Meaning, until the boy is bar mitzvah and the girl's bas mitzvah, most places can say they are allowed to have yichud, right? Even though each one individually can't have yichud with an adult, but most are of the opinion that they are allowed to have yichud with each other. Again, that's the halacha. The practical, you have to understand, like when people ask a question of the swimming, coming to these are Hanukkah vacation questions and winter vacation and summer vacation questions. At what age can you let cousins swim with each other with the cover-ups and etc. Schwimmkleid and all that type of thing? So the answer is, I mean, the answer can be halachically can be okay, but practically you might want to answer not okay, meaning dependent on the maturity of the boy and the girl and how much they understand about the differences between boys and girls can make the difference whether you should allow such a thing like that. So even though theoretically a 10-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl would halachically not be yichud, it might not be the most advisable thing to do in the world, but that you'd have to take that into your own judgment. Okay, so now what about um okay, so now let's see what let's once we're discussing relatives, so that's from the also more common questions. So which relatives don't have a yichud issue? So of course, parents and children don't have yichud issues, right? So a father can be alone with his daughter, and mother can be alone with the son. Grandparents, grandparents is also not an issur of yichud, and meaning you don't have to worry about that. Although in the Paiskim it does discuss whether a grandfather is allowed to kiss and hug granddaughters. It's not as simple as we make it out to be. The bottom line is we're knowing that grandfathers do hug um, grandchildren, but not as simple as we make it out to be. Um, Siblings. That was everybody say, is there yichud between brother and a sister, right? So I imagine most people would say yichud between a brother and a sister. What's the problem, right? The answer is that is not so simple at all. Basically, the halacha is that there is no yichud with siblings if it's short term. If it's long term, then there's an isur yichud on siblings. Right? It sounds odd, but that is the halacha. Again, short term, there's no isur yichud. Long term, there is an isur yichud. The question is, in the poskim discuss is how what is long term and what is short term. So some poskim say 30 days is the minimum, meaning is the minimum that you would call, well, not minimum, or say maximum. The maximum amount of days that a brother and sister can live alone with each other is 30 days. Meaning, so if a brother and sister are going out of town and they want to stay together in the same apartment for 2 3 months. So most poskim would say that that is not allowed. Now, if they get other people to move in, et cetera, and there's other, maybe leave the doors unlocked, depending on if it's an apartment. Again, I keep reiterating because we're not when we have to end in a couple of minutes, and I haven't really given. We're just given the scenarios. We haven't really given the answers, so I feel bad leaving everybody hanging, but so nobody should get nervous that, oh, what we've been doing is also, because in most cases, as chomer as we said, yichud is, there are also many many ways out of it. But bottom line is, if a couple, meaning a brother and a sister, would like to live long term with each other more than 30 days, so most poskim would say that's too long, and they're not allowed to stay with each other. Some say um, some say it's even 2 or 3 days is too long for them to stay with each other. Ramosha Feinstein, who happens to be extremely strict in Hilchos Yichud, the psakim of Ramosha Feinstein are extremely strict in the Surim of Yichud. So Ramosha Feinstein says somewhere in the middle. It depends if what they're staying with, if they're staying with each other in a temporary fashion, then it's okay, and there's no minimum or maximum amount of time. Meaning, if the brother is visiting from out of town and he stays in his sister's apartment for a couple of days, that's fine. But if it's, let's say, but again, I'm not talking for emotion. I'm just my understanding of it. Right? But let's say they're going away to a Pesach program and they're gonna put the brother and the sister in the same room for 8 days, 9 days. That might already be considered too permanent. I don't know. Everybody would have to ask a their own individual shiloh. But the way Ramasha finds, he says it, if it's in a temporary fashion, then it's okay, no matter how long it is. And obviously, if it gets too long, then I imagine that turns into a more permanent. And if it's just a couple of days type thing, then it would be fine. And this makes no difference if the sister is married or whether if she's over the age of 3. Meaning, in theory, you can have somebody that's he's meaning in theory, according to those that are strict, the parents go away to Eretz Yisrael for 2 weeks, right? And the older brother's there, and he has this 5-year-old sister, and they're staying together in the house. Some poskim would say that that's not allowed. I think that would be, I mean, that would be from the more strict interpretation of this halacha. But there are those that would say that would be a problem. We'll end with this. There's actually an interesting leniency because in halacha, when it comes to touching, a sibling is similar to an aunt or an aunt, depending on how you say it, tomato, meaning father, sister, or mother, sister are are in some ways similar to sisters, in meaning sisters according to halacha are you're allowed to. The Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to touch your sister or your brother, but it's considered disgusting to do that. It seems like that would be the same status for parents, sisters, father, sister, or mother, sister for a boy. Doesn't for not here. It's a difference because a girl is allowed to marry her uncle, right? Meaning the reason why some of these, I should have pointed this out before, the reason why some of these relationships don't have yichud is because there's no desire. The Chazal took away the desire for close relatives to be with each other. So the question is, does an aunt, as an aunt, have the same lack of desire from both ways? But an uncle with a niece, that's not allowed because there actually is a mitzvah for an uncle to marry a niece. So clearly there is no, as strange as it sounds, but there was no broken desire for that. So therefore, that would be an issue. But again, for Ramosha Feinstein says that to be alone with an aunt, which does come up sometimes, because an aunt will be a babysitter, right, for their nephews. So there is room to be makel on that situation, according to the Igros Moshe. Okay, we'll have to stop there. We got a little late, but because the next year is coming in 4 minutes. Just to review, just to have a quick review. Um, the consensus of most poskim is that yichud is an issa daraisa, and therefore it's very strict. However, there are many scenarios where the yichud is a darabanan. The the uh, the most practical application with that is a goy. A goy is a yichud is a darabanan, meaning both ways, male goy to female Jew, or female goy to male Jew. More than two women is a derabanan. A single girl that has not yet gotten her cycle is also derabanan, right? So, but the main crux of it is a deraisa, and the difference between deraisa and derabanan is by derabanan we can have more leniencies. There is no minimum amount of time for yichud unless you know from the outset that there will not be a minimum share of yichud, like in an elevator. But other than that, it is, if you don't know how long you're going to be alone, then there is no minimum, and it's also right away. The minimum age for yichud by a girl is age 3, and by a boy is age 9, and that comes up a lot with babysitting and play dates. We said that a boy less than bar mitzvah is allowed to be with a girl that's less than bas mitzvah. We said there's no yichud from parents and grandchildren. Siblings, there is a isser yichud, but only in the long term, not in the short term. And then we said there is room to be lenient by aunts. Okay, we will stop there. We should hear only Basudas Tavas. I want to have some questions. Um, um, Oh, so what does it mean when it's disgusting to touch a sibling? I don't know exactly what the Shulchan Aruch means he just means it's disgusting, but it is mutter. It seems like most people nowadays are more lenient with touching siblings. And no, it doesn't say yichud, it says to touch. It means to touch in a loving way, to tap a sibling on the shoulder, etc. That's not a problem. We're talking about touching, like holding hands, hugging, giving a hug and a kiss. But I know many chashuva Rebbitzins I don't know many, but I know of chashuva Rebbitzins and Rosh Hashivas who did hug and kiss their sisters by a simcha, etc. So it may ikar adin, it's mutter. However, I'm just quoting the Shulchan Aruch that it is disgusting. Okay, I hope we didn't scare everybody off with these shilas. But Be'ez Hashem, next week we'll just finish off talking about how many women and how many men make yichud, because the more people you have, the less yichud there is, and then we'll get into all the heterim. Okay, a good vach, we should have Basuras Tavas.